Hey friends, welcome back to another class. Today we're workshopping our Urdhva Dhanurasana. This is known as our upward facing bow or our wheel pose, and it's quite a challenging back bend, but it's also a really fun one to play with. So this video will be perfect if you're wanting to explore this in a little bit more depth. What we'll be doing is that I'll show you how to get up into this pose, breaking it down step by step. I'll also give my 5 top pre-poses that you can do in your own time to warm up, to open through the front of the body, to strengthen the back of the body, to help prepare you with this pose. And then also 5 common mistakes that I see with people who are practicing in my class in real life, and tips on how you can change this to work better for your body. All right, let's get started on our back. I should also say that in 2 weeks' time, we'll be posting a vinyasa practice that includes this pose. So if you did want to utilize the skills that you've learned in today's practice, then you can do so in 2 weeks' time. So once we're down on our backs, and I won't recommend you practicing or following along with me because you're probably not warm, but a great alternative for wheel is finding Setu Dasana, which is our bridge pose. So the feet will be close towards the hips, hands by the sides, and you'll very simply just press through the full of the foot as you lift your hips up, squeezing the glutes, tucking the ribs into the hips. And then you hold here for a little bit of time and then lower yourself down. Okay, where you can go from here is bringing the hands behind your shoulders, fingertips turning to you. You might walk your feet out a little bit here. Just make sure the toes aren't turning out too much. You want them pointing directly away. Hug the elbows in. The first step is just to lift your hips up, just like you did in your bridge position. And then you'll press through your hands to lift the head up so that the crown of the head comes down to the ground. Okay, and then spread the fingertips wide. If you felt like more, you would push through your hands, push through your feet, lift the chest up. You want to think about shifting your shoulders over your wrist, lengthening the legs, making sure the knees aren't too far out, drawing them inwards. And you can stay with your eye gaze behind you, or if you felt like a little bit more, you would turn your eye gaze down in between your hands. So quite a challenging back bend. You would stay here for a couple of breaths, making sure you can breathe. If you can't breathe, you've gone too far. And then when you're ready, you would come down, tucking the chin in, and then rest on the ground for a few breaths. And it's really important that we find time afterwards to let the spine resettle. You might even come into a counter pose where you draw the knees in towards the chest, so you find flexion through the spine. And that way we can settle the spine, making it come back into a neutral position. So those are some steps that you can take to getting into Urdhva Dhanurasana. Roll yourself up. So we'll go through kind of my 5 top pre-poses. These were quite hard to choose because there are so many that you can include. But the first one that we'll do together is lying down on the belly. We'll extend our right hand out to the side, turn the left toes up, push through the left hand and roll the chest open to the left. So the foot is going to land on the floor. You want to push gently through the left hand to open the left shoulder back. So why this is really good is that it's opening through the right pectoral muscles. We're finding a little bit of a twisting sensation, extension sensation through the spine as well. Another alternative is that you can take your left foot and you're almost trying to walk it up to your right hand. This will create more of an extension through the hip as well. Just changes the sensation a little bit. Take one more breath in this position. And then coming back through center. All right, let's try that on the other side. So right hand comes into the ribs, left hand comes out to the side this time, turn the right toes up, and you open the chest to the right, right foot plants down. Make sure that all of your left fingertips are pressing down into the ground as well. We want the hand to be active. You could also take your right hand behind the back and reaching towards your lower back, and that might help roll your right shoulder away more. You could stay here, or you could try walk your right toes back. Take a little wiggle. And they might be more like halfway up to your hands. They might not completely touch. Take one more breath in here. And then as you exhale, come back through center. Bring the hands by the ribs. Press onto your knees and then push your hips back into child's pose. So again, finding a bit of a counter pose, letting the spine resettle. When you're ready, come back through center. Find your way into a tabletop position. Your second movement that I would recommend is wrist circles. So you might just start with having your fingertips facing forward, spreading the fingertips wide and then circling your shoulders around. So commonly, our wrist can be something that holds our Urdhva Dhanurasana back. It's a really intense angle for our wrist to be at. If you did feel like a little bit more, you could flip your hand, maybe just one of them. If this still feels quite intense, you can turn the fingertips out a little bit more, and that's just going to reduce the angle, and you'll just shift forward and back. So you just want to make sure that the wrists are warm. And then you'd come back through center and just press the back of the hands down. You might do the same thing. If we don't get on our hands very often, if we don't practice yoga a lot or maybe other forms of movement, just turn the other fingertips, then our wrists do tend to get very tight. So we want to make sure they're open. And then flipping the other hand. And then coming back through center. Third movement, we're going to do a kneeling lunge. Take your right foot outside your right hand. You want to wiggle your left knee back a little bit so you can sink yourself down. You might put a blanket underneath your left knee. Now you can stay up. We want to think about reaching the crown of the head up to the sky. So fingertips might be on the ground. You could also have two blocks here. If you felt like a little bit more, you could come up, bringing hands to your right thigh. You don't want to drop all your weight down. You want to think about zipping your inner legs together, and that's going to help keep the legs active. This is going to help open through the left quadricep and the hip flexors, which will help find extension of our hips as we head back. And if you did feel like a little bit more and it felt open to doing so, you could take your left hand around your left ankle. Take another breath in here. And then as you exhale, letting that go, swapping to the other side. Making sure that the left knee is roughly stacked on top of the ankle. And you could stay with your fingertips down, or you can lift yourself up. There are lots of other great variations of your lunge position, like Anjaneyasana with your arms up overhead is a great variation. Lizard lunge down here is a great variation, maybe lifting the back foot up. Your Kapottanasana, your pigeon pose with the back foot up is another great variation. Squeeze the shoulders back and down. You want to keep thinking about lifting the chest up, opening the heart. One more breath. And then releasing the hands down. Of course, we're going through these movements a little bit quicker than you would do in your own time. You would probably hold for maybe 30 seconds to a minute. Fourth movement, let's come down onto our belly. Two options, we'll do this twice. The first option is our Shalabhasana, locust pose. Hands come by the sides, zip your feet together, and then lift your feet up and lift the hands. So squeeze the shoulder blades back and down. You can have the palms down, or you can turn the thumbs up, palms out. Squeezing the glutes as well, using the hamstrings to lift the feet up. Take another deep breath in. Lift up a little bit higher, and then as you exhale, lower down. You might bring the hands on top of each other, and then in your forehead rest down. So our Urdhva Dhanurasana, it requires a bit of strength, actually quite a bit of strength through the back body. It's not just about flexibility and opening. You've got to drive the feet down, which uses your glutes and your hamstrings, the back muscles. Now you can try that again if you wanted to find Dhanurasana, bow pose. What that will look like is either bringing one hand around the ankle and then lifting up that way, pointing or flexing the foot, or you can try 2 legs, 2 arms, drawing the knees towards each other, and then when you're ready, breathing in to lift up, exhaling to hold. You want to tuck the shoulders back into their pockets, kick your legs away from you and above you, using your hands as a way to lift the ribs off the ground. 2 more breaths. And then lowering down to the ground, resetting. Bring the hands by the ribs, pressing up onto your knees, maybe traveling back to child's pose again. And then walking yourself up. My last pose will be a variation of flip dog or wild thing. I quite like wild thing. It makes you feel very open and graceful. So you can bring your left leg towards you, your right leg away. Bring your right hand down to the ground and you push through the feet to lift the hips up. And you can keep more of a twist so you're facing the side, or you can reach the left fingertips to the ground, opening the chest up to the sky. So it's a very similar version of our Urdhva Dhanurasana. And then you would lower your hips down, swap the feet, breathing in, and then as you exhale, you'd push up. So very similar variations, finding openness through kind of the left wrist, finding engagement through the legs. And you can do that as many times as you'd like. Flip dog is pretty much the same thing, but both legs are bent. Makes it a little bit more challenging. It's actually a really fun transition into our wheel pose, because you'd come up and then spin your hand around, turn both of your fingertips to you, and then you would flip the hand back around and then lower yourself down. Okay. So those were our 5 peak pre-poses that you can do. 5 common mistakes that I see with people when they practice out their Urdhva Dhanurasana is that the first one, when they lift up, their weight seems to be really far back to their feet. Their heels might even be off the ground. And as you can see here, their wrists are at a really intense angle. Why this usually happens is because of a lack of thoracic extension through the spine, which includes the shoulders. And so what we want to focus on is really trying to get our shoulders open. You want to think about pushing through your feet. Pushing through your feet to shift your shoulders over your wrists. Second mistake is that generally when we're back here, like I said before, it's the thoracic spine isn't extending as much as it needs to be, and rather the extension comes from our lower back. You want to keep pushing yourself over, feeling the shoulders open, tuck the ribs in a little bit so we're not hyperextending through the lower spine. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive to find a little bit of contraction when you're trying to extend, but that just means that our muscles are more engaged. We generally have a lot more extension in our thoracic spine than our lumbar spine. So we want to encourage this to come from our shoulders, our ribs, rather than our lumbar spine, to prevent any sort of pain or discomfort coming from there. Okay, third mistake I see is coming from the feet. Generally, when we get up, this might be a really hard position for our hips to be in this extension. And so we try to take our feet really wide and the toes kind of come out. What you want to think about is walking the feet in. They don't have to be totally hip width distance, but turn the toes forward. You want to screw the feet down into the ground, and that will also help the knees to track in, which is the fourth most common mistake that I see, is that the knees go really wide. We want to activate through the inner of the legs and our glutes to help draw the knees inwards, and that means that it's a true extension through the hips rather than trying to find a way to get up as best as we can. Okay, so we've covered the feet, we've covered the knees, and basically the last one, very similar to all the ones, is getting your shoulders over your wrists. Okay, that's actually going to make it a lot easier for your wrists to take on the load because they're at less of a flexion angle than if you are far back here. Okay, that's going to be way harder for your wrists. So keep pushing yourself forward. Lengthen your legs. Okay, and then it's going to be a lot easier for your hands. Whew. And there are lots of fun ways to play with your Urdhva Dhanurasana even more. Adding an extension with the leg, toes lifting up. You can come down onto your elbows. You could try, I haven't even tried this, but kicking up and over into kind of a standing position or a drop back. So if you did practice this, let me know what you thought. If you found any tips that were helpful, I'd love to hear them. And if you wanted to practice these in a flow sequence, in a vinyasa sequence, then check out this channel in 2 weeks' time because we will upload a class there. Look forward to seeing you soon.